one of the things that I've made a mistake about in my game is like you don't really have to make it. Okay.
And we are in the cutoff, and it folds to us. And we have ace-3 of spades.
Okay.
And we open to 20, which I think is pretty standard. And the button raises to 100, and it folds to us.
All right, stack sizes?
Yep. So effective 2K, might even be, change over, but just about 2K effective with the villain here on the button.
Okay, and of course the 5-5 game is it might even be uncapped. I don't know if there's buy-in
Yeah,
caps.
it is uncapped.
It is okay. It's uncapped. Okay, so you make it 20 with ace-3 of spades. Button makes it 5x, which is pretty large. It's interesting. I mean, this is late configuration here, so cutoff versus button. I mean, I would defend here, but it is a large 3-bet, and you wonder if you can really start to actually fold out some of the worst suited aces, like an ace-deuce suited or an ace-6 suited. I'm not sure if you actually consider just folding. It is cutoff versus button.
Yeah, it certainly crossed my mind. Sizing of it is as the, but I think probably 3 through 5. 9. I think I'm probably going to continue there, and it's also just sort of a nature of the way the games play.
By the way, too, some people in the live chat saying that you can 4-bet this hand too. I mean, there's some dead money out there. No, I mean you can definitely 4-bet. Yeah. The thing about being this deep though, it's not a cold 4-bet, and I actually think that you need to take somewhat of a large sizing here. Like you can't go 20, 100 to like 250. That's not really even a bluff. You know what I mean? If the guy's going to be getting crazy odds. I remember doing some stuff on top section in this scenario where you can easily go 4x here, up to 4x. It's not a cold 4-bet, but I think all options are open. Sounds to me like you called or what?
Yes, no, I did call. And I think the 4-bets there, I think against brand new, fresh player, fresh game, just didn't feel like the right time to mix that in with the ace-3. But yes, we call.
Okay, so the pot's 200. Yep.
So we call, go to the flop of jack of hearts, 6 of spades, 7 of spades.
Okay, so you flop the
we flop the nut flush draw and
draw.
Bottom into the back door.
Pretty bottom. That's finding your back doors for sure. Pretty bottom end.
Doing my best.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we check. I think I'd be curious for quick thoughts on this board. If you think, what kind of leading range, if there would be.
I mean, if you want the theory of it, I don't know if there's ever a leading range. Heads up into a 4-bet pot. Is there a leading range?
It'd be three bet pot.
Oh, 3-bet pot. Excuse me. Even in a 3-bet pot, is there? I mean, a leading range heads up. It's kind of, it's a little bit bizarre. I mean, one of the things that I'm going to do as an exploit, which I'm going to add towards the end of my small stakes exploits, is fast playing everything, no matter what the situation is. But I don't really call this game really small stakes, and I think you can't go wrong with fast playing a lot of things if you actually had a thick value hand at the really small stakes, especially multi-way. But I would still tend to check to the pre-flop 3-better here.
No, definitely wasn't a thought. Just sort of curious on your thoughts on that. Mm-hmm. No, this is for me a check everything. And so our villain on the button bets just over half pot, 110. I think we have 210 in the pot.
Yeah.
And this spot feels to me, that I sort of have all the sets here. I think I have the 6s, the 7s, even the jacks with this sizing. I think I'm calling it a decent amount. I mean, the late versus late, maybe not. Maybe I should be 4-betting most of the time.
Well, it's interesting because
curious what you think there.
And again, I don't know if your opponent's going to be at this level, because you would normally have 6-7 suited as a defend here too, but because the sizing is large, I don't know if you defend with that. There are 3 6-7 suited combos here too. So if you were to defend with 6-7 suited, because the 6 of spades, again, it's jack of hearts, 6 of spades, 7 of spades, because the 6 and the 7 are the same suit, then, you very well might have 12 thick value combos, right? Like all 3 sets of each rank, and then, 3 suited 6-7. Here's the thing, what I would say here about what, if you want to check raise, I think it's a fine play because I think, you don't want to lose to, a better ace high. But one of the things that I've made a mistake about in my game is like, you don't really have to make it all that much. Like, you don't need to go like 600, 500, something like that, because you're not really getting any of those hands really to fold out. Now, if you go like just even to like 350, I think it really gets the job done. And if he's making a protection bet, although his sizing is a little bit weird with a pair that's between, say, like 8s and 10s, I don't think he's supposed to continue unless he has a spade in his hand. Because, again, it's one of these things where, I mean, he does have some backdoor straight draws, but if he's behind now, it is hard for him to really catch up. He'd almost rather have a 5-out draw, right? With a 2-out equity. So, I think you can make this like 350, and then if he calls, he does have something, and it's unlikely to be spades.
Yep, no, that makes sense. And I think for the earlier question, I think the 6-7 is very close for me. I think it's easy to say in hindsight that it's a call, but yeah, very close, hard to say. But yeah, all that being said, we actually do check raise and to that exact 350 number, and our button does call.
There's a question here. There's a question here
Yep.
in the live chat. Does Jack 10 suited fold? I would never fold Jack 10. There's good property. I'm talking about from the button's perspective, right? Because Jack 10's blocking pocket jacks, and it also has that backdoor too, right? With the, where it can pick up straightening types of hands. I mean, Jack 10 is interesting because if you go back to that hand that I broke down from the lodge, right, when I 4-bet the Jack 10 of diamonds and the guy had ace queen, if people remember that, it's kind of similar in the sense where, you block sort of the, if you're the button, would you rather have like aces, kings, or Jack 10 here? The thing is that a lot of times on these draw heavy boards, it's still better to actually have the higher overpair because you have more equity against the draws that like a king, queen of spades type of hand or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Okay, so the button calls, so the pot's 900.
Yep. We go to a turn, which is the Jack of clubs.
Wow, that's got to be like, that's got to be like
maybe
the worst card in the deck for you.
just about.
I mean, here's the thing, like
maybe the net worst.
This is the difference between this card on a really severe down bet C bet sizing from your opponent. Like, if your opponent followed up on Jack 6-7 in this 3-bet pot with a continuation of bet of like 50 to like 60, you are certainly allowed to check raise some Jack X for protection. But I don't know, and you can tell me, caller, are you check raising a Jack here on the flop? Especially if you've got, overcards as kickers.
Yeah, that's the thing. I thinking about this in hindsight, I told myself that there would be some jacks, some ace jacks that would be check raised here. And I think why I tend to lean more towards in this hand wanting to do that is a lot based on the sizing, even just pre-flop, but also I think the flop sizing just kind of being an odd number, just, not really any sort of specific tell, but just sort of feeling a bit off. It feels like the ace jack might creep in there. Just, how wet and dynamic that board is. Our opponent, potentially having some 8-9s, having spades.
The other question that I would have too that we can think about is that normally in a late versus late here, ace jack off would be a defend. But again, because this guy's used really large sizing, it still seems a little bit nitty to fold ace jack off, but ace jack with the ace of spades might be one hand that could be check raised here too. But in practice, I just don't see a whole lot of people check a Jack X here to like a 5X 3-bet, followed up by at least a half pot size bet. With that being said, I don't like this turn card for you. And the reason why is, of course, is that now there's obviously cuts, jacks, 3 jacks, which would now be 4 jacks by 2/3. And, if you were to have 6-7, you're now counterfeit. So I think that you're weighted towards a fair amount of draws if I have an overpair here. The other thing that's interesting about this too, and I might sort of advocate a little bit of unbalancedness because it's such a bad card for you. I kind of sometimes would be be willing to continue to bet my bottoms full here in a little bit of an unbalanced way, where maybe in the theory is you're supposed to check everything here on the turn. Because you're supposed to check everything on the turn, sometimes you'll actually see a reverse free card if you check here, because somebody thinks you're sandbagging a boat. You might not get a bet from queens or kings, and that might be a good thing. You get a reverse free card, you know? So
yeah, no, that's a good point. I wasn't considering.
The pot's 900, okay.
Yep, pot's 900, and we continue. So we continue for just over half. I think 475 is what we continue for. And so what we're thinking contextually is, you know, since we do still have the sets, you know, the one quads and a blue moon, I suppose, but maybe we check some of those. It just felt like to me I needed some bluff here. It was my thought, and then maybe I'm hammering this too far home, but it just felt like I needed some hand to balance the bluff.
Zach, let me ask let me ask you a question,
Yep,
Zach.
go ahead.
Okay, so let's put ourselves in your opponent's shoes, okay? And let's start thinking about the bottom parts of your button opponent, the bottom parts of his range that go bet call to your flop check raise sizing. I would say, what are the bottom parts that go bet call of your button villain here?
Yeah, I think we're thinking eights through tens with a spade at best.
So let me ask you this question: if you had those hands, okay, are you folding to this turn if you're your opponent to 475?
Right. Yeah, never.
Because now there's less jacks, and we already talked about that. It's debatable whether you're even check raising a jack. Now, with that being said, this is another kind of weird thing that I will see sometimes at the low stakes. This spot overfolded for whatever reason, especially if you fire into a multi-way pot. A lot of low stakes guys don't understand the fact that now with what you're representing, there's less combos of Jack X or whatever, and they overfold just because of the pressure. But I mean, this is the highest stakes game at the Lodge. That's why I'm not a huge fan of this bet, because if the bottom parts of your opponent's bet call range are calling this turn, what's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point of the barrel?
True.
Right? So you bet 475. Okay.
Yep. So we bet 475, and our opponent calls.
Shocking.
And then go to
shocking. I can't think of a hand where he's folding. I mean, maybe if he's got lower spades or something. Maybe he's got lower spades, you're ahead. All right, so 1850, right? Yeah. 1850, you've put in 825, 920. So you've got like 1100 or so left.
Just about, probably just under 11, I think.
Okay. Yep.
And we go to the river of a queen of clubs.
Okay.
Again, probably not the best card, but I think not really the worst card for us either.
Why is that? It doesn't seem to connect with anything.
No, I guess it just in my mind reduces the number of number of queens he has and puts him more in that 10s, 9s, 8s range. But
I mean, I guess
minorly.
I get, again, I'll go back to what I just asked you. The bottom part of his bet call range on the flop that continues here on the turn. So put yourself in his spot with 8s, 9s, 10s. Let's say you bet 1100. Are you going to call with 8s, 9s, and 10s here at the end? What does the queen change?
Yeah, it's right. True. The queen changes nothing.
Okay. So, I mean, I would be giving up just like I would give up here on the turn. Yeah. But then again, I mean, once in a while, you're up against somebody that's just sort of scared of the money. But if I was structuring this, from a theoretical perspective, and then forget about overpairs. I mean, overpairs just aren't going to fold. I don't think so.
Right.
Yeah. And then, the other thing too is people are like, well, what if he's got queen, wouldn't queen X of spades move all in? I don't think so. I don't think that the caller here with like queen 10 of spades would move all in here at the end. I would think it would be way in between.
That would be tough. I don't,
especially blocking
so.
10s.
Yeah. You could be running into the jack, and I don't know. I don't know that the ace queen does ship it there.
So what did you do?
We shipped it. We put it in
for 1100.
Yes, we did.
I mean, do you understand
And
though my issue with the line? I mean,
oh,
whatever
absolutely,
the result
absolutely.
is. I mean, that's the whole
Yeah,
purpose of this.
no, no,
Yeah.
I definitely understand, and I think in my mind, I just got very, very hung up on the idea of needing some element of bluffs here, needing at least one or two, just to kind of maintain some element of balance. But right, when you do think about it a little more critically and understand what the opponent can have, it's tough to see a fold on this turn and river.
The other thing too, again, you have spades, right? So that's not good to bluff with, right?
Right.
Because it cuts down on your opponent's spades
Yeah.
hands.
Yeah. I
What?
think maybe like a hand like 8-9 of hearts or something could be a hand that
Sure. I mean, 8-9 of
we.
hearts is probably better than bluffing here with ace 3 of spades. I mean, I still don't
Yeah.
go, balls to the wall, but it would be better. It would definitely be better.
Yeah.
It would definitely be better. And the other thing too is that, I guess it doesn't matter if you bluff, but you can't check 8-9 of hearts here, right? Because you lose if it goes check check, and then once in a while, if for some reason your opponent had like king 10 of spades and you checked ace 3 and he
Right.
didn't bluff at it, you might win. I mean, very, very slight, but that's fairly different. What ended up happening? So you rip for 1100.
Opponent tanks for a good while, but ends up making the call.
And what does he have?
And he turns over 2 red tens.
Whether or not he's supposed to continue with red tens to your 350 is really the inflection point. But if he calls and I'm him, I'm continuing with a call on the turn and a call on the river. I didn't know the result of this hand, right? You just emailed me and we just talked through it.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what happened past. I don't know if you definitely didn't reveal, or I don't remember. But yeah, I'd get there at the end there too. So I hope you understand why that's a call, or why I think that's a call.
Yeah,
from
absolutely.
from the
I
button.
appreciate the feedback.
All right, great.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Thank you very much for the call. I appreciate it.